Imagine standing on a quiet beach in southern Greece. The water is clear, the waves are gentle, nothing seems out of the ordinary. But dive just a few meters down, and right beneath your feet, an ancient city is lying there. Not a chaotic ruin, but a carefully planned urban settlement. Streets, houses, courtyards, even cemeteries. Its name is Pavlopetri. What makes Pavlopetri different from most other submerged ruins is this. It was not a city that was completely destroyed and then sank, but a city that was still alive and was slowly swallowed by the sea. There are no mythological legends about Pavlopetri. No heroes, no curses, only stone, walls, and the way they are placed exactly where they belong, as if the people had only just left. Pavlopetri was first discovered in 1967. At the time, archaeologists were not searching for a city. They were simply surveying the coastline. But what appeared beneath the water made them stop. Straight walls, clear right angles, running parallel to one another. Not natural rock. Not a coincidence. When they examined it more closely, they noticed the first striking detail. Pavlopetri had streets, not worn footpaths, but planned roads connecting residential areas. There were small houses, larger ones, open spaces resembling shared courtyards. There was even a clearly defined area used for burials. This reveals an important truth. This was not a poor coastal fishing village. This was a complete city. The age of Pavlopetri has been dated to around 3000 BCE, more than 5,000 years ago. At that time, many major civilizations were still in their early stages. Yet here, people were already living in a city with organization, planning, and distinct spaces for daily life and ritual. The first obvious question immediately arises. Why is a city like this beneath the sea? There are no signs of warfare, no evidence of burning or destruction. The walls are not collapsed in chaos. This leads to a reasonable conclusion. Pavlopetri was not destroyed suddenly. One hypothesis suggests that the region experienced multiple earthquakes over hundreds of years. Not a single catastrophic collapse, but gradual land subsidence combined with rising sea levels after the Ice Age. If this hypothesis is correct, what would have happened? The people of Pavlopetri may have watched their city sink piece by piece. A road that was usable today might be flooded during high tide decades later. A neighborhood could become damp, then no longer livable. Eventually, they left. No panic, no flight, but an orderly migration. This explains why the city's layout remains largely intact. There was no rushed destruction, only abandonment. But this is not the most surprising part. When researchers used modern 3D scanning technology to map Pavlopetri, they noticed a detail that made many stop and think. The city's urban planning appears far too advanced for its time. It was not a random arrangement of buildings. Everything suggests that the builders had a clear understanding of urban space. So the next question is, who built Pavlopetri? And where did they learn how to build a city like this? To understand Pavlopetri, it is not enough to look only at the walls. What matters more is how people lived within those walls. By analyzing the structure of each building beneath the sea, archaeologists recognized something very clearly. Pavlopetri was not built all at once. It was expanded, modified, and rebuilt over many generations. There were small, simple houses, likely homes of ordinary families. But there were also larger complexes with multiple rooms and inner courtyards, signs of families with higher social status. This indicates that Pavlopetri's society was socially stratified. Not everyone was equal, and a stratified society is often supported by a stable economy. So where did Pavlopetri's economy come from? The city's location provides an important clue. Pavlopetri lay at a strategic point along ancient maritime routes linking mainland Greece, the island of Crete, and the eastern Mediterranean. In other words, this was not merely a place to live, it was a hub of transit. Researchers believe Pavlopetri once functioned as a port city. Goods passing through may have included olive oil, wine, pottery, and handcrafted products. There is no need to imagine anything extraordinary, only enough to sustain a city for centuries. Then another striking detail appears. The cemetery of Pavlopetri. The dead were not discarded at random. They were buried in an orderly manner, in clearly defined areas separate from living spaces. This shows that the people had a clear understanding of life, death, and collective memory. A society with formal burial practices is usually one that is stable and deeply rooted in its home. This leads to a more important question. If Pavlopetri was growing and thriving, why did its people still leave? There is no evidence of mass famine, no signs of war, no layers of ash. The most reasonable explanation remains long-term environmental change. If the ground subsided by a few centimeters each decade, people could initially adapt. They raised their floors. They altered pathways. But eventually, the cost of sustaining life exceeded the benefits. At that point, leaving became the logical choice. One detail invites deeper reflection. Pavlopetri was not abandoned in panic. There are no signs of urgency. This suggests the people had time to prepare. They may have taken valuable possessions with them. They may have migrated to higher, safer ground. If so, Pavlopetri was not a lost city. It was a city deliberately left behind. And this is where another, more challenging line of reasoning emerges. If Pavlopetri had already reached such a level of urban planning over 5,000 years ago, then it is very likely it was not the only case. How many other cities once existed along ancient coastlines, only to disappear as sea levels rose, never to be seen by the modern world? Pavlopetri may not be an exception. It may be one of the few cities fortunate enough to be discovered. And if that is true, then humanity's history beneath the oceans may be far greater than we have ever imagined. Pavlopetri lay quietly on the seafloor for thousands of years, not because it was forgotten, but because no one looked down deep enough. As underwater archaeological technology developed, humanity began to understand that the ocean does not only hide shipwrecks, it also preserves traces of entire chapters of history. Pavlopetri makes one thing very clear. More than 5,000 years ago, people already knew how to build, plan, and sustain a coastal city. They did not live temporarily. They invested in their homes, believing they would endure. But nature does not need sudden destruction to end a city. Slow change, given enough time, is enough. If sea levels continue to rise over centuries, if the land continues to sink little by little, then no catastrophe is required. Life simply retreats. And this is what makes Pavlopetri especially thought-provoking. The people who lived here may have known their city would not last. They may have discussed it, weighed their options, and decided to leave. Not because they failed, but because they understood their limits. The question is, where did they go? Did the new communities that later emerged in ancient Greece carry with them knowledge of urban planning, construction techniques, and coastal living learned from Pavlopetri? Was part of later civilization built upon the memory of cities like this? There are no certain answers. But logic suggests that knowledge rarely disappears completely. It usually moves with people. Another hypothesis, more cautious but no less compelling. If Pavlopetri existed before many recorded civilizations, then the history of human urban life may have begun earlier than we think. Not earlier by a few hundred years, but earlier than the familiar milestones found in textbooks. And Pavlopetri was discovered only because it lies in shallow water. If it had sunk just a few dozen meters deeper, we might still know nothing about it today. Just that leads to a final, and most important, question. Beneath today's oceans, how many cities like Pavlopetri are lying in silence? How many stories of people, of choices, of adaptation are hidden beneath the sea? Pavlopetri does not tell us a legend. It tells a very real story. People once built, once believed, once left, and left traces behind. If you had lived in that city, how long would you have stayed? And when would you have chosen to leave? Leave a comment below. Do you think Pavlopetri is a rare exception, or evidence that many more ancient cities remain buried beneath the oceans, still undiscovered? Your perspective may open an entirely different way of seeing the past.